Right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's been a while coming since we've done an update on the Mesh Energy embodied carbon calculator, but as always, work gets in the way. But we finally kind of polished this version up, and I personally think we've added some features which were missing. It's always kind of work in progress. So we'll run through some of the features that we've improved. In fact, what I will do is intro for those who haven't seen the embodied carbon calculator before. We'll just run through kind of what the calculator is about very, very quickly. We'll go through some of the new features. I will then, if we think it's worth it, show you, the actual calculator in its glory. I've kind of half built a project and can show you a couple of things, and then we'll wrap up just by talking about some of the things that we've got planned. And as always, we're always really, really keen to, if you're using the calculator on a regular basis, or you've got an idea of how it could be further improved, always open to suggestions. Funnily enough, lots of comments have been shared with us since version 1, and this is how we've got to version 6, because we thought of a great idea. There's a great idea has been suggested, we improve it, and we carry on. So the usual kind of boring admin stuff. Do keep your mics on mute. We're recording this. We'll likely put it up on YouTube for others to see. Do ask questions in the chat box. Always open to a question. And I am not going to spend too much time at all talking about Mesh Energy. But again, for those who aren't aware of what we do, we're an independent and holistic energy consultancy practice, increasingly getting involved in ultra low carbon and kind of net zero design buildings. We work with the client and the wider design team to offer our impartial advice and try and just decarbonize and make sustainable buildings more successful, so that you can be more successful and operate, really wherever around the world you fancy us operating. It's amazing what similarity there is in the built environment. So we're more than welcome to help out wherever you are. So without further ado, the embodied carbon calculator has kind of come off the back of what's been going on with RIBA 2030 and various LETI and UN sustainability goal drivers. There's a whole nother presentation on the up-to-date kind of alignment of various targets that we've got in the calculator, but this is just a screenshot out of RIBA 2030. But what we've tried to do is bring this stuff to life in the calculator, so you're not having to rifle through lots and lots of documents and literature to find out where you should be with the calculator. We've consumed or subsumed that in the calculator for you to benefit from. And one of the really big advantages in the more recent releases is the ability to share. So it's one thing understanding stuff at a very early stage of a project, but ideally what we're aiming for as a community as a whole is to share our results, not to pick them apart, but just to share more widely with others what we've found out and how our buildings are doing. It gives you more insight, gives your peers more insight, and helps the community as a whole. So you'll see that we've added this reporting, which again has been standardized and shared openly by various far smarter people than me working for LETI and the RIBA. And we've wrapped that into our tool to, again, save you having to manually write stuff out and make mistakes. So as the whole, the embodied carbon calculator, there are various ways of doing these calculations, and different people have taken different approaches. Ours doesn't require any special software. It's in Excel. Everybody's got access to Word, whether you're operating a Mac or a PC. And we believe to get the most accurate answers, we're not making any estimations here. It's just about building up the materials that go into that building. So yes, you've got to have an idea of how thick that particular element of a wall might be and measure how many square areas, square meters that may be, same with the windows and doors. So there's a bit of kind of upfront effort. Of course, the information out is only as good as the information that you put in. But once you've gone to the effort of putting that information in, of course, it can be changed at any point in time. But what it does do, and this is quite a unique feature of our calculator, is it gives you an immediate U value as well. So you can figure out how adding different building thicknesses, material thicknesses in generally affect the U values of that building if you're trying to target those. We wrap in different types of building services. So radiators, underfloor heating, heat pumps, boilers, all kinds of things. You know, these all add to the embodied carbon within the building. It's not just about what you're making the walls, the roofs and the doors and floors out of. We've got automatic reporting to very quickly and easily get you the answers in some kind of agreed format. And you can print them straight from the calculator as well. So it's the easiest way that we can think of and the most accurate way in these early RIBA stages to get information in there, to get some meaningful feedback and make changes to the design as a result, or at the very least flag if there's an issue. So new features, what have we got in here? Well, there's a fine balance in all of these calculators between keeping them free and simple and making them complex enough so that you actually get some meaningful data out of it. And what we found is, as we develop more and more of these, is the requests for materials has got longer and longer and longer for us to include them, which is fine. And we've added those features as you'll see. But the problem is, particularly, you know, I think we've got about 50 materials or something in the calculator at the moment. You don't want to be searching through all of those, you know, when you're just looking for a particular material. So for the first time ever, we've added a search function. So if you're looking at your floor, you want to know maybe it's recycled concrete, maybe it's not recycled concrete, maybe it's concrete of some kind. You can now type concrete or part of that word, conc or con, and it abbreviates the list of materials that has that in the title. So you're choosing from a list of 5 or 6 rather than 50 materials that are relevant. So it just speeds up your choices, and always, and as is in the calculator already, those are listed in least impactful to most impactful in the order that they're presented. So again, just a quick hack to help you choose faster. One of the big drivers for this version revision was, I think it was Tara from the States actually, who was on our embodied carbon work group that we did last week, reached out to us and said, I'm in the States, we don't use the metric system. How do we use your calculator? And that got me thinking, actually, that's a huge market, which, you know, is maybe not getting the information that they need. So I set about doing the conversions, and now you can choose between metric and imperial. So if you're feeling particularly American one day, you can do it in imperial units. If you're feeling metric and European, British or whatever, it's not non-American, you can do it in the other materials. So hopefully a few more American users can use this, and it brings it to life a bit more as well. We've got updated material data. Sophie Senator is in contact with me on a really reasonable basis. She's well into embodied carbon, as you will have found out from last week's talk. And she made me aware of some CLT, so that's cross-laminated timber changes, work that had been done by I think it was the Institute of Structural Engineers. There'd been a whole load of work, and actually the impact of cross-laminated timber was far lower than had originally been thought. So we've wrapped that into the new materials, you know, just information. So we're trying to put the latest information in there, and that's what we've done. We've also got now, again, a request from the States. We've now got the option to put in 20 completely unique of your choosing materials that aren't listed. So if you find an EPD of a material that you want on your project that isn't already in there, you can just smash the numbers in and you've got access to it, again, via the search function or the drop-down list in the calculator. Also, something else, again, which was a real pain, particularly and I got this request over and over again, was about volumetric materials. So for example, if you had steels running through a building and you knew the volume of that steel was 2 cubic meters, it's obviously not a sheet material. It's very, very difficult if you know, measuring all the sections and doing things like that. But you know, if you've got that metric, that volumetric data now for roofs, walls, floors, and other elements, if you don't have a thickness of a material, but you know what the volume of that is, you can drop that in. And again, it gives you all the relevant information. It just allows you a different input format into the calculator. And we've got a few more tweaks to the building services. So a very good question before, what happens if I don't have a heating system in the building? And the answer is, well, we didn't have that option. Now you can deselect whether you've got hot water, heating, ventilation, these various other things, and cut out all of the building services in the building if you really, really want to. That's very, very rare, but at least you've now got the option. So there's a good few changes that have been made, hopefully to speed up what we're doing, and we'll just rattle through those. So this is the new calculator. Not a massive amount's changed, but there are some subtle changes here. And the first of those changes is around the material search. So as I said before, in this area here, if you're not familiar with the calculator, or you are and just need reminding, this is where you're picking all the materials. In this particular case, this is for a particular roof type. So in all of these cells here, you used to manually have to search through the entire list of, say, 50 materials. Now we have sorry, I'm just getting my head. Apologies, I'll come to that slide later. It's a rogue slide that's found its way in there. I'm going to start with units. So metric, up at the top here, we've got a selection between metric and imperial units. So just below where you put in all your main data for the project at the top, you can pick between metric and imperial. And this is just a kind of a zoom in. So you can see here, there's a drop down that you can pick from, and dead simple. It just changes all of the units that were kilos. It changes into pounds. Cubic meters is now cubic feet. You know, those various conversions that you use now are just completely automated. The headers change so that they're based on imperial data as well as metric. So a dead simple change. I'm not going to linger on this, but you can now put in information in both in both unit formats. Volumetric quantities, as I said before, we've now got an area down here. We had sheet materials, non-sheet materials, and then I've just slightly covered up there, volumetric materials. So things like steel and concrete and those things that you know the volumes of that aren't sheet materials, or, you know, don't come in battens or things like that. You can now put those in, put the cubic meters of material in, and again, that adds to the information that you've got, and is dead quick to do. And this is just a zoomed in view. So you're used to putting in sheet material here in these cells, non-sheet materials like battens and things like that. And at the bottom here, we've got volumetric materials, just a couple of lines. You don't need lines and lines and lines. A couple is absolutely fine to help you quickly cover that off, and just hope speed up your input process. Bespoke materials, we've now got a, on the materials tab, so this is out of the main calculator on a separate tab. You've now got a long list of materials here. I've actually added in EPDM and put in my own figures, just a rough estimation. You can put in 20 different materials. They're all fully searchable. So if you add your materials, you can search them in the other tab that you've got, and just allows for user kind of customization. You've got to make dead sure here that you're picking the right numbers off of the kind of product data sheet, and that is, of course, at your own risk. You need to make sure that you're interpreting the data off that properly, but our calculator at least allows you to put that in. So I can do a quick demo in a sec, but I just wanted to skip over that and just come to what we've got on next. So we're kind of quickly running out of things that we can kind of keep adding to this before it gets more complicated, but one of the other things is we could add a few more materials, particularly if any of you have used the Institute of Structural Engineers calculator, then they have quite an in-depth amount of materials that are particular proportions of, say, GGBS in concrete. And what I am thinking potentially about doing is smashing together their database and our database, just to give you more data choice. All their information's in the public domain, so we can, you know, we're not hiding anything, we're just incorporating the databases. And potentially as well, because I know a lot of people do use the iStructE calculator, what we may do is put a field at the bottom that allows you to, you may have used that calculator separately, and maybe your structural engineer's done that, and that will allow you to manually input kind of key overall figures for, say, you know, the building frame, which has had a lot of work done on it, and then that adds to our calculator, which inputs it out in standardized formats. One of the other considerations, which I'm really serious about as well, is whether we may well keep the Excel calculator, because I think it is a really useful tool, but one of the other options that I'm seriously considering, and this comes from feedback, is the difficulty with geometry. At the moment, you have to, measure surface areas. You may have done something in SketchUp, you may have sketched something on a bit of paper, you may have drawn it in Revit, whatever it's going to be. There's very different ways that you could have drawn your building. And then you've got to manually put it into a database. Well, spreadsheets aren't for everybody, but they are powerful and easily accessible. And what I was seriously considering was putting some time and effort if there was interest in doing a web application. So you could access the calculator via the web and actually potentially build a basic property. So either drawing a floor plan and extruding it, or putting in some windows, or putting on a different type of roof. And this is pitched mainly at architects. So I know that this would appeal to you. So you actually draw a building in stage 1 that's got the appropriate massing or the amount of floors, and you actually apply, you could build your own wall constructions and save those. You could build your own floor constructions and save those and apply them to the elements of the building. And in doing so, it then automatically dumps out the stuff that you were putting into a spreadsheet at the moment. Now that's quite an investment in time and money, but I think it'd be fascinating to get feedback from those on the call to see if that would be, would kind of take it to the next level. A web application, of course, would be accessed across the globe to do something like that. But a lot of the work that we've done here would be at the kind of the back end. So it's not as tricky as it might seem, but it allows us to do get the information into the package potentially easier and in a way that designers are a bit more kind of familiar with. So that's an idea. That's a slightly bigger idea, but that's the way that I'm thinking potentially we could offer this to make this more useful for you guys. And of course, always ideas and collaboration always welcomed off the back of this. We are working, in fact, with some bigger practices on their own embodied carbon calculators and morphing these kind of two together. So always interested in collaboration as far as this is concerned. Just whilst we're on this, just before I do a really kind of short demo and show you what I've covered off here, are there any other questions that you guys have got? There aren't a mega, well, there's 16 people on the call. I mean, if you want to unmute your mic, feel free to talk, or we can put something in the chat box about what you've seen. We'll do a few minutes on questions, and then I can run through the demo quickly. Any of you guys got anything you wanna mention?
Not for now, no, that's great.
Cool. Okay, fine. Well, what I'll do, if you think of something, bang it in the chat box. I'll just try and get the calculator up. Hopefully agree the changes that we've made do make it easier to use. But we'll show you that and do it. And hopefully, I'm hoping that because of the size of the calculator, the screen resolution I've got on my laptop is not that incredible. But let me just try. This. See how much we can actually see on this screen. Yeah, I might struggle on this. Let me just try this out. Just bear with me one sec, folks. The technical jiggery pokery, see if we can get it to work. Right, let's try this again. Okay, can you guys see the calculator now? Is that a cat? Can you see that?
No.
No, you can't see it. Right, let me try showing this again then. Let's try this. Can you see the calculator now? Great. Okay, I'm getting nods. Good. Right. Okay. So the general gist is, as I say, if you're familiar with the calculator, nothing kind of radical has changed here. Let me just zoom out a bit. So this is just a demo project that I put together. Apologies if some of the writing's a bit small on the thing that you've got. Everything here has stayed the same on the left-hand side. This is where we've got our drop down for imperial and metric. So again, nothing too fancy here. This is just where you would put in your options of units for the, for the calculator. And just if I change that, you can see that various things change to inches, and you've got feet squared, and we've got BTUs per hour. Sorry, you've got BTUs per hour feet squared Fahrenheit, which is the U value units if you're in the States. So a few things change between the two there. And as I say here, the search function I was talking about, and this is it's quite handy to know this. So at the moment we've got a blank input field here for a material. So let's say, for example, we wanted, so this is the roof. So say we wanted to look for tiles. If I type in, I've just typed in tile there into that box. And now I've gone for the drop down. We've got 3 options for tiles as compared for 50 when I had nothing in there. I say apologies if the writing is tiny, 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 but believe me, you can see that the list is very, very short there compared to having nothing at all. And if we typed in, say, concrete or conc, these are all the list of concretes that we've got there. So again, a really, really quick way of minimizing your time searching. As we go down here just slightly, again, we've got the volumetric materials. So very, very quickly now. And again, we can use the search function. Let's say we wanted to put in steel. So we've got some steels in the building. We have no idea. We can't be bothered to figure out what the overall sheet thickness would be over what area. Our structural engineers just told us there's a cubic meter of virgin steel that's gone into the building for the frame. So we can type in steel. We can pick steel, just well, in that particular case it's 100% recycled, but we could pick whatever we wanted to, and let's go for 0% recycled. This is going to be part of the frame, so we call it the frame, and we know that there's 1 cubic meter that's gone in there, and immediately it's just dumped in all of the embodied carbon information that we need for that. And this, typically you would use this for like steel and concrete, really, either stuff that you're pouring or stuff that's been smashed in the factory into a really awkward shape so that you can't work out the volumes. The other thing which we have added in was just simply around some choices of the building services. So for example, heating and hot water, you can now pick that there's no heating system installed. It's very, very rare, but you can pick that. So you can have no against all of these things. And in fact, you can have no emitters installed as well. So you're not forced into having particular things. You can say they're not in the building. And just as a reminder on our materials, so I've just moved to our materials tab here. Again, this is what I showed you before. So you've got a big long list of areas that you can type in your own material. You can bosh in all the numbers for the embodied carbon and the thermal conductivity. So again, it can help work out what your U value is if you include that. And all of these titles are searchable. So whatever you call them, you can save that to your own calculator and search for those as is. And that is, folks, that is really about it. So some minor changes, but hopefully you'll find them, you know, it'll be easier for you guys to use the tool going forward. As I say, always open to ideas and suggestions. And that is it. So unless anybody's got any questions, as far as making this available, I'm going to send a copy of this to Kat. As far as we're aware, it's been completely debugged. So I'll send a copy to Kat. We'll smash that up on Meshwork by the end of the day. We'll pin it as a post at the top there, Kat, so it's easy to find. And as always, remember, we do have on Meshwork, we've got an embodied carbon calculator like group. So feel free to, if you're using it and you're confused by something, feel free to put in any questions that you've got there, and we'll try and get those answered. There's a few people in the business that can help do that. And if it's genuinely, if we've tweaked something and something's gone a bit sideways, do feel free to point out the errors and we'll get those fixed as quickly as possible. Okay, folks, I think that is it. There's no questions. Hope you enjoy it. Do use it, and as I say, we'll keep thinking about ways that we can improve the calculator so you can use it on more and more of your projects. And good luck. Thanks very much.
Thanks very much. Thanks.
No worries. Take care, guys. Bye bye.